Hello, everybody, and welcome to my presentation on Pedro De Gante. Now, I have never heard of Pedro De Gante until I took uh, the 651 course with Dr. McLean, and I was not aware of who he was until I watched Dr. McLean's Unit 2 lecture. And so I did some research and did some readings and realized that he has not gotten his proper due as a pioneer of music education. He is virtually unknown in the history of American music education. And according to the articles, he was also an innovator who could be considered America's first educator. Pedro de Gante was originally known as Peter van de Moor. He was born in 1479 in Flanders in the city of Ghent, and he was also known to be a blood relative of Charles V. His music education at the University of Leuven in Flanders was modeled after the University of Cologne. Music held a traditional place in the mathematical quadrivium along with arithmetic, geometry, and astronomy. He arrived in the New World in 1523 with the purpose of converting the Indian population to Christianity. Music was utilized to facilitate the conversion of the Indians. Mexico was considered the new Spain, and Pedro de Gante would spend most of his life there. In 1524, Pedro de Gante founded the first school on the American continent, the Mission School for Indians at Texcoco, Mexico. The courses taught included reading, writing, visual arts, singing, and playing musical instruments. The purpose of the school was to make students converts for the church. The school also served as a chapel and a gathering place for the community. Before the school was founded, De Gante had to understand Indian culture. He studied the language, all of the ceremonies, costumes, and folk ballads of the natives. Before practical music instruction was given, the Indians were taught to copy musical transcript by practicing drawing even lines and clear notes. Along with singing, De Gante also taught composition. The students became proficient in singing and writing music enough to compose their own Christmas carols in the form of four-voice chants. And they also instructed Indians how to play Spanish instruments. Now, these instruments included the flutes, guitars played with a bow, cornets, bassoons, trombones, kettle drums, and organs, the first organ being built as early as 1527. And you may wonder, how did they get these instruments? Did they ship them over? No, they were made by the students with teacher supervision. Within the first months, he had 1,000 pupils applying modern and progressive techniques, such as visual education. He used their art forms such as music, dance, song, and poetry with his lessons. Because he had so many students, De Gante created the first national normal school for the training of teachers, 300 years before Horace Mann. Now, he did this by selecting 50 of his most advanced students. Right now, I'd like to talk about Pedro de Gante's educational philosophy. He was a great believer in correlation, and he also incorporated Indian art forms with his lessons and music. And he also incorporated visual learning and also object training based on sense perception. And his philosophy was he believed that none could be a teacher without learning from his students. He dies in April 1572 and was buried in the chapel of San Jose, where he spent most of his life teaching. His school that he founded grows to 1,000 students in 1589. Right now, I'd like to talk about his impact in music education in America. He was the first teacher of European music in America, and he also taught 1,000 students a year, and was the first to have students sing European polyphonic music, and also had them building violins and organs and various other Spanish based instruments. Pedro de Gante also opened the first teaching school in America and possibly founded the first church orchestra in America. Pedro de Gante influenced other Franciscan missions throughout Central and North America, spreading his knowledge of music education and also undoubtedly the presence of music of Mexican culture. And where would music be? Music is very popular in the Mexican culture, and one would lead to think what would happen if Pedro de Gante did not actually spread music education through schools back in the 1500s. And another important contribution that he had made in education is his cultural interaction in the classroom. In George Heller's article, Fray Pedro de Gante, Pioneer Music Educator, Heller states Pedro de Gante's work from 1523 to 1572 succeeded in transplanting the achievements of the Renaissance Europe to the New World. It is a contrast to the failure of similar efforts by missionaries to merge the European and indigenous cultures in the United States a century later. Now, I think what Mr. Heller is talking about is his teaching was based on cultural interaction. And one of the unique things that Pedro de Gante did was understand the culture of the Mexican Indians and combined it with his own European culture. And I believe was vital to the success of his school and a lesson that we all can learn as educators. We ought to know how they are and what they are culturally if we are going to teach them our style of education or our concepts. We need to consider them culturally, and that will lead to the success of the students' learning. So I hope you enjoyed this presentation, and thank you all for watching, and take care.